This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Katherine Shen. Just in time for the season of gathering and gratitude, we're spending the hour with Dorie Greenspan. She's a 5-time James Beard Award winner and one of the most beloved voices in baking. Her newest cookbook, Dorie's Anytime Cakes, is a love letter to simple cakes and the memories they hold. The ones that sit on the kitchen counter, get packed into lunch boxes, and are shared with the people we love most. This hour, we'll talk about baking as an act of joy, nostalgia, and connection, and why there's always room for just one more slice. Dorie, it's so wonderful to have you on the show today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad we're both kind of flowing to the music here, so that sets the tone.
It's really nice music. I think I'll put it on repeat when I bake.
That sounds great. That's great. And I know, we have a lot of bakers here in the area. So bakers, listeners, let us know if you have that one recipe that never comes out quite right. You can ask Dorie about it. Give us a call, 888-720-9677, or leave us a comment on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. So, Dorie, you're joining us as we're nearing the holiday season. So even people who rarely whip out those baking pans are about to dig them out and dust them off. So what's your favorite thing to bake for yourself and your family this time of year?
So this is really baking time. I had a friend who used to keep her baking pans in the oven because she never baked, right? So when you said it's a time to take out the baking pans,
right,
I thought of her. It's definitely time. So it's really, it's fall, it's get ready for holiday time. So it's a time when I like to bake with seasonal fruits. So I was at the farm stand and there are all kinds of great varieties of apples. So I'm doing a lot of baking with apples. I have a recipe in the new book called First of Fall apple cake. Could also be a pear cake, and I've made one of those. I made a harvest cake, and it's also in the book. It's a really simple cake. You mix it by hand, but it has grapes in it, and apples, and nuts, and dried fruit. So it's all the fruit of the season. It's a great time to get ready for the holidays and to bake ahead.
So I know, and this is something that we'll be talking about throughout the conversation today, but as you mentioned, apples, I think that's something that a lot of people gravitate towards too, especially during the fall time. You have the varieties of apples that you can try. A lot of us like going to apple orchards and pick apples and get apple cider and apple cider donuts. So is this a time where you feel like you gravitate towards or do you also use this time to experiment new things with familiar foods?
So one of the things that, may I just back up
Sure.
to the time that I got fired as a baker?
No, really?
Oh, yes. It was my first job. And my job was thinking about when you said, do I gravitate toward experimenting? This was my problem. I was hired to bake the restaurant's signature cake and cookies. And I did every day, just as I was told, until one day I just couldn't stand making the same cake over and over again. And so I swapped, it was a chocolate cake. It had whiskey-soaked raisins in it. I swapped the raisins for prunes, and I swapped the whiskey for Armagnac. I kept the chocolate, and I sent the cake out to the dining room. And that afternoon, after lunch service, I was called in, and the owner of the restaurant said, "That was some cake you made." And I said, "Did you like it?" She said, "Like had nothing to do with it. You're fired." And I was fired for creative insubordination.
That's a great phrase.
Right? It took me years, but I'm kind of proud of it. And so I'm always playing with recipes. And from my very first book, whenever I could, I've added a little section called playing around to a recipe. So it's both permission and inspiration to use the basic recipe and to add things that you really like to it. And I like having people feel comfortable in the kitchen. I mean, the whole point of writing a cookbook is so that
Hmm.
people will go into the kitchen and enjoy what they're making. But I like people to be able to say, oh, I've got that apple on the counter. Maybe I can use it.
Did you at least find out if the people actually liked the cake or not? Or you just left
Oh,
without
yeah, I
knowing?
think now she said it was she said the cake was fine, but prunes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It was the wrong thing to do. I got a second baking job, but I quit before they could fire me.
Listen, you got to be creative when you need to, right? And it's interesting because we've been having conversations, different conversations about being in the kitchen, whether you're cooking or baking. And I think this idea of playing and experimenting is a lot more prevalent nowadays. And that's certainly another thing that we're going to dig into throughout this conversation. But before we get to that, because you're the author of more than a dozen cookbooks, Dorie, how does your most recent book, Dorie's Anytime Cakes, differ from others that you've written?
So this book surprised me. I hadn't planned to write a 15th book, but I was working on some cakes for a story for the New York Times. And as I was working on them, I just I'll back up a bit. They had asked me to do a story on holiday cakes, and I imagined those to be big, fussy, center of the table showstoppers. And I said, that's not really the way I'm baking these days. How about if I create some recipes that just stay in the kitchen? So while you're working on the showstopper, you can be nibbling on my kitchen cake. And they said yes. And as I began to work on the cakes, I had so many ideas. I had so many thoughts. I had so many memories of cakes that I had had like this all through my life. And so this book it's, I've always had stories for cake, for my recipes, but this book has more stories. It has more backstories. It has more context. There are recipes that I found when I was traveling or recipes that were given to me. And I think these are the kinds of cakes, the recipes for the cakes. They've kind of popped up in all of my books. There's a simple cake here, another simple cake there. But this is really, in some ways, the book I think maybe I was really meant to write.
Mm.
Um, it's a collection of these really satisfying, simple cakes.
Well, I think we
And it
love
holds,
that we
well,
love
I'm sorry, I was
satisfying.
just,
No, I was just gonna say we
yeah,
love satisfying and we love simple. Finish your thought.
yes, yes. I mean, I think the word comforting is used all of the time now, and
Mm.
we maybe lose track of what it feels like to have food that's comforting. We just say it. But I find these cakes to be comfort cakes,
Well, and
both in I'm sorry,
no,
both while you're making them, and the process is so great, and when you're having them and sharing them.
right. And because you mentioned simple and satisfying, and I think a big phrase in the title of your book is anytime. So we'd love to talk more about the word anytime in the title of your cookbook. What's the significance of these cakes being great for any time?
So it's kind of it's a double meaning. So it's that they're simple enough to make anytime, and they're not special occasion. They're anytime. They're also cakes that you could have for breakfast. They're cakes that right you can nibble all through the day. I have a sweet potato cake in the book.
Mm,
Perfect for Thanksgiving.
right.
Perfect for Thanksgiving. The inspiration for it was that sweet potato casserole that we all love that has marshmallows on top. So it's a sweet potato loaf cake. It has a marshmallow topping. It has maple syrup and pecans. It's everything that casserole is, cakeified. But when I went to find a title for it, I couldn't get it exactly right. And so I called it Morning, Noon, and Night Thanksgiving Cake.
That's perfect.
In any time
I mean, we
cake.
already do that anyway, right? Day after Thanksgiving, who is not having pumpkin pie or pecan pie for breakfast?
Sometimes the day before.
Right.
Yeah.
And like you said, during, of course, when you're snacking. And I think that's not the only part of your book that feels especially accessible for home bakers. You also came up with recipes that use ingredients that a person would most likely already have in their pantry. How come that was important for you?
Because it was important for me because I'm a home baking evangelist. I want everybody to have the joy of baking. And it is for me, it's a joy from start to finish. And because I want to encourage people to bake, I don't want it to be hard. I don't want it to, I mean, where I live in Connecticut, it will take me 25 minutes to go to the supermarket.
Right.
So 25 minutes there, 25 minutes back, the shopping. I could, if I didn't love baking so much, I could change my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to have a basic baker's pantry and to be able to draw on it. And I thought about that. There are plenty of recipes with fun extra ingredients, but I wanted people to be whim bakers, to just feel like, oh, I want to bake a cake, and to be able to do it then.
Well, and I love that you mentioned earlier that one of the differences for your book this time around is you have a lot more little stories about each recipe, and I that's actually something that I really enjoyed with your book
Oh,
is I love that before each recipe we get sort of a little glimpse of what you're thinking. You know, there's a little anecdote at the top that's usually either how you were inspired to do this recipe or a memory of how you discovered that food. And what was it like going back to those memories, sort of one dessert at a time?
do you know, uh, this book was so interesting for me to write because this is not what I expected.
Right.
And I didn't know that I would have these memories. I didn't know that I would taste something and that it would bring back so many memories. Um, I think that food tastes better when there's a story.
Mm.
So I like to give people a context, a story that they can tell when they're serving what they've made, or something that will pique their own imagination.
Mm.
So I mean, things like I baked a sponge cake and I layered it with whipped cream, or I served whipped cream on top, actually. And my husband tasted, and I had some strawberries. And my husband tasted it and he said, "Doesn't this remind you
Mm.
of the Charlotte Russe we used to have?" We grew up in Brooklyn, New York, just blocks from one another. And all of a sudden, everything about that cake came back. The way it used to be served in a little cardboard push up, like those ice cream pops that you
Hmm.
push up.
I can taste the
And
cardboard right now.
right. And we bought them as snacks from a little counter on the street. And so I reworked the cake to make it more in
Mm.
keeping with that memory. But it's it's so nice when what you're making is connected to what you love. And that happened a lot in this book.
Well, and I think that's so magical. I think in the sense that so much of us, I mean, so many of us, I think we carry a lot of memories in our food. It's very similar to scent, right? Where you smell something and it takes you right back, or music, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and so I love the memory portion and the way you described how there's a story behind every item, because I do think that makes that so much more special, right? You have a cake that's sprinkled with a little bit of memory. I feel like that makes it an extra special experience to either bake it or eat it or share it. So is
And it
that
gives, I'm sorry, I was
no,
going to say it gives the baker, those are my memories,
mhm.
but it gives the baker a chance to create a memory.
Right. So you're sharing your memories and hoping that the person who's eating it can create new memories or maybe evoke their own memories, right? Perhaps they've forgotten it. And because you mentioned being in Connecticut, you have to drive 5 minutes
Yes.
to get to your to get to your the
Yeah.
items that you need, the prunes, let's say. Um, I'm really curious to hear how where are you influenced by the places that you're living in? You know, does it it sounds like it really has an impact on the produce you're able to find, the things that you're able to make. And I also assume that it changes the flavors.
Well, yes, of course it does. So I live part-time in Connecticut and part-time in Paris. And so what I can find, what I'm seeing, or what I can find in the markets, what I'm seeing around me, what my friends are making, what they want, what restaurants are serving, all of that becomes imagination material. All of that becomes a what if. Oh, what if I take fresh corn and put it in a cake? What if I made a cake using harissa, the Moroccan hot pepper sauce. And that was a what if. I had made a tagine. I had the harissa in the house, and I thought, I wonder if that can go into a cake. And so, yes, where you are, what you see around you. I mean, I'm going to be so sad when the farm stand closes. But
too.
being able, right? Being able to see what's growing, what's coming in, what's fresh, what looks beautiful. Yeah, it's all part of it. And when we were talking about creativity and playing around before, when you find a recipe that you love, and you make it and you feel comfortable making it, then you have the possibility of saying, oh, look what I found in the market. I can put that into that cake. And you're building your own cake and your own story.
And when you land in the different places, are you immediately inspired to make something that you perhaps may not normally make when you're not at the place?
So if I'm going someplace I haven't been, if I'm going to a new city, I'm going to a new country, my first stop is the grocery store. I love going to the grocery store. I love walking the aisles and seeing what products are new to me. I like to look at the snack section. It's always fun to see
Naturally.
what's snackable in another place, and go to bakeries, go to pastry shops, see what people are doing. Sometimes I'll see something and it's a different shape from the shape I'm accustomed to seeing. And that will give me an idea. I think, this is true in any field, I think inspiration is all around us.
Right. You never know when it'll come to you, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes when you're
Exactly.
cooking. Sometimes where you're cooking, sometimes where you're at the supermarket. Do you have a random place that you had a random thought? I usually call them shower thoughts, which is often what happens when you're taking a shower and suddenly you're like, oh my God, that's a great idea. And you don't have anything to write it down with.
So I've often thought that if I lived underwater, under the shower head specifically, I would be far more creative. Yeah, shower's a great place to think. A walk without anything in your ears is a great way to get new ideas. Yeah.
You've been listening to Dorie Greenspan. She's a New York Times bestselling and James Beard Award-winning author of 15 cookbooks, and her latest is called Dorie's Anytime Cakes, and it's available now. Dorie will be sticking with us after the break, and bakers listening in, we will love to know, what are you most excited to bake this holiday season? Let us know, 888-720-9677, or leave us a comment on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Catherine Shen. Cakes are not just for birthdays, and if you have some for breakfast, there's no judgment in this space at all, as our guest today, celebrated cookbook author Dorie Greenspan, knows that as well. Her latest book, Dorie's Anytime Cakes, celebrates the art of a good, unfussy cake to be baked with or without a special occasion. And listeners, you can ask Dorie your questions. Let us know what they are, 888-720-9677. Leave us a comment on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live, or you can also email us at wherewelive@ctpublic.org. So, Dorie, we were talking about earlier how you have a lot of your stories before recipes, and you've also sprinkled a lot of your own personal lessons and takeaways from baking throughout the book. So, one that stood out to us was actually an anecdote about baking for your son's first birthday, and being reminded that baking is supposed to be a joy and not a stressor. So, can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
So I think anyone who's baked or who's had a child turn one, it's a crazy time in your life,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're juggling so much. And for our son Joshua's first birthday, I made a cake, but I barely remember. I mean, I remember the cake. I baked a cake. It was a coconut cake. Don't ask me why I thought coconut was right for a 1 year old. And I baked cookies for all the little kids that came. I remember nothing about the party I was so focused on a million jobs and the cake. And in the book, I write about getting a second chance because I have two granddaughters, Gemma, who's 5, and Bibi, who's 3 now, and being able to bake first birthday cakes for them and what it felt like. It felt like a special gift that I was giving in some ways selfishly to myself
Mm-hmm.
because I had the chance to really focus on them. And I think when we bake, whether it's baking for a birthday, if we're baking for someone, it's an act almost of meditation, or I've always wanted to keep a journal. I never have. But I feel like when I'm baking for someone, in my mind, I'm thinking about that person, the experience I've had with them. It's almost like a little reread of a journal. And I feel like that's those special times when we're baking for someone special, they stand apart. However, I never made a fancy cake oh, that's not true. I made a Darth Vader cake for Joshua's 4th birthday.
Wow, that's
I even
fancy.
made that was fancy. I remember very well. I've made all kinds of fancy cakes with buttercream roses. But when it came time to make first birthday cakes for my granddaughters, and they're in the book, they were simple.
Well, it's very much like what you were saying earlier too, where I think every food item you make, there's a story behind it, there's a memory behind it, and it sounds like this is very similar, right? Where you incorporate the experience into the dessert that you're making, and talking about perfection, or being so in your head about having to do the thing, and then making sure everyone is happy and serving all the cakes and the cookies. Whenever we talk about cooking of all kinds, the idea of perfection seems to always come in. Why do you think we're obsessed with this idea of being perfect in the kitchen?
Do you know, I think I don't, I've been there, and I can still return to that spot. It's not a happy place. Um, I wonder if because now we have so many cooking competitions and baking competitions, and we're seeing people being, go home because your cake isn't perfect. I think it's raised the bar. I think it's made people more interested in baking, which I
Mm.
love. But I mean, perfection, who's perfect? I feel like I would rather have a cake that has someone's thumbprint, either literally or figuratively, in the cake than a perfect cake. I want to see, I want to see someone's hands at work. I want to feel that someone has put some heart into what they're baking. Um, I think perfection is so overrated.
I
Overrated.
actually usually like the what bread, let's say the one that's like wonky looking, because there's so much more
Mm,
character to it to me.
character, character, personality. And I I worry that when we're striving for perfection, when we think that the dish that we've cooked has to be put on our best plate and arranged the way we saw it in a restaurant, or that the frosting on the cake has to be absolutely flat, I think we're taking away the pleasure that comes from working with our hands and making something and then sharing it.
So, Dorie, I want to take a quick moment here for a couple of questions coming from our
Okay?
listeners. We're going to take Cynthia, who's calling from New York City. Cynthia, you're on the air.
Oh, hi. Thanks so much for taking my call. I have some trouble knowing when I'm doubling a recipe, if it's okay to double all the ingredients. For example, yesterday I was making flaky biscuits in preparation for Thanksgiving, and I didn't know if I should double the salt and the baking powder and the baking soda. Is there a hard rule about whether or not you can always double all the ingredients, or are there some that you should shy away from?
So
Thanks.
you can't see me, but I'm smiling because Catherine and I had a conversation before we went on air in which I said that I had taken science and math for poets. It's amazing I'm a baker. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule, but I have a question for you. How were those biscuits that you doubled the recipe for?
Well, I actually froze them
Okay.
to use for
So,
Thanksgiving, but and that was another question I had is
okay, wait,
when
wait,
I
time
bake.
out. Wait, I
Okay,
think you're going to be okay. Doubling is not, I mean, obviously I haven't tried this and I don't know if there's a hard and fast rule. I don't think there is. But doubling is usually not a problem. It's when you get into much larger quantities, comma,
okay.
I think.
Okay. And
I'm
then my
sorry.
second question is when I bake the biscuits, do I have to defrost them, or do I bake them frozen?
You can bake them from frozen.
Okay. Thank you so much for your help.
Well,
Enjoy your Thanksgiving biscuits.
I know now I really want some biscuits. Can't go wrong with some nice flaky biscuits. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for calling in with your question. And so we have another question from Aaron, who wrote us a comment on Facebook. Aaron shares, what a treat to have Dorie on. Can you help me understand why I can bake really complex things, but I can't make thumbprint cookies come out right? They always spread. I have an oven thermometer and have worked around those issues, but there seems to be a dozen other possible reasons for failure. Can Dorie say what the most common reason is for spreading?
So it sounds to me like you've really tried. So it's not going to be an experimented. So it's not going to be either you put the batch on to a warm baking sheet or your oven wasn't properly preheated. It sounds like you're a careful baker. It's the recipe. I think it must be the recipe. I think you could try, it might have too much butter. It might have not enough flour. Have you tried refrigerating the dough and getting it really cold and then baking it when it's cold? That might help.
Thank you so much, Erin, for that question as well. Good luck on your journey with that, and hopefully we can follow up with you later and see how things work out after some experimentation. And Dorie, as we've been talking about, experimenting and having fun in the kitchen and how perfection is so overrated. And so it seems like you've always had a bit of a risk-taking spirit, and pursuing baking was a bit of a risk for you when you were first starting out, right? It wasn't your first career path.
Well, given that, given that I burned my parents' kitchen down when I was in seventh grade, it was really unlikely that I was going to turn out to be a cook or a baker. And I learned to cook and bake. Oh, yeah, that was that first bread that I made that was like a hockey puck. But I learned to cook and bake because I got married to Michael. We're still married when I was 19 years old, and I wanted to learn. And he was really very patient. My mother once said, "You're so lucky you married a man who would think salad is okay for dinner." So he would eat anything that I made. I was a student, so I had plenty of time to cook. And yeah, I really wanted to. And so much of what I made wasn't good.
Well, and I love the sort of the origin story for that is there's a sense of curiosity and a desire to learn. And that's something that
Yes,
we were talking about earlier because you also found your passion for food writing. And then in the summer of 1995, you actually spent the summer in Julia Child's kitchen and
yes.
striking up a friendship with her. So what an amazing experience. Tell us about that time in your life and what did she teach you?
Oh, everything. She was so Julia Child. She's fabulous. I mean, she was the embodiment of curiosity. She was interested in everything. So I worked with her in Cambridge when we were filming, and it was filmed then, the Baking with Julia series for PBS. And then I wrote the book. And Julia Julia really thought of herself. She never called herself a chef, even though she was on a program called The French Chef. She always said she was a home cook or a home baker, and she really was a teacher. She really wanted to teach people what things to do in the kitchen. And one day, we were talking about how we're always interested in things before we were on air. And one day Julia and I played hooky from the shoot, and we went to a supermarket, which was Julia's idea of fun. And out of the clear blue sky, she said to me, "We're so lucky. We're lucky that we work in food because it means we'll never stop learning." And I just think that when you're really interested in any subject, you have the possibility of constantly learning. There's a recipe in my new book that I've learned about in Greece. It was my first time in Greece, and we were leaving the little guest house, and the woman in the kitchen, the server said, "Don't leave without taking a piece of this cake. You have to." And she knew I was interested in sweets. "You have to try it." And I loved the cake. It was an orange cake. And when I got back home, I kept looking for the cake. I had never tasted anything like it. The cake is made with dried phyllo dough. There's no flour. You dry the phyllo dough in the oven. You kind of pleat it up, dry it, scrunch it between your fingers, and use that as the binding agent in the cake. And I was so excited. The cake is well known all over Greece. I'm sure that most people with Greek heritage know this cake, but it was brand new to me, and the idea of using phyllo. And I thought, this is it. This is why I love baking, because Julia was right. There's always something new to learn. We'll always be learning.
Well, and I think you already answered my next question, but there's so much here to dig into, I feel, because your career trajectory is so filled with joy and twists and turns and also with decades of experience. Do you ever find it difficult to keep coming up with new and fresh ideas, or are those really moments where you lean into curiosity and you know what, you're going to try this thing? Maybe it doesn't happen, but who cares?
Such an interesting question, because I've done two books that we call them single subject. So I did a cookie book and this cake book. And both times I was worried that I wouldn't have enough ideas to stay within the box that I had created for myself. It would be cookies. It would be simple cakes. And I found, and this has just helped me in every other field, I found that in some ways, the narrower the focus, the constraints that you put on yourself, I will make just cookies, I will make just simple cakes, the more ideas you have, because you're really focused on one thing. So that when I was working on anytime cakes, everything began to look like a cake. I had cake on my mind. I had this wonderful cookie in Paris, and I thought, oh, it's a great cookie, but I can turn it into a cake. And so I cakeified this poppy seed cranberry rye cookie. It's the idea spins. You can't always, and I'm sure this is true in every field. I know it's certainly true in my writing. You can't always just snap your fingers and say, new idea, I need a new idea. But when you're really involved in something, the ideas come.
Well, I think it's kind of like what you were mentioning earlier too, where you find inspiration anywhere, right? And in anything. You see a cookie and you're like, that can be a cake. I mean, I'm assuming you see a chair and you're like, I can turn that into a cake. I'm looking at a chair right now and I'm thinking that, Dorie, if anyone can turn that into a cake, it's gonna be Dorie. Do you find that new challenge for Dorie? Do you find that sense of the idea, inspiration, or the sense of curiosity or imagination, does it leave the kitchen and follow you wherever you go?
I think in different ways. Yeah, what a question. What a question, Catherine. Yeah, I think in different ways. I think I once thought, oh, travel would be more interesting if I collected something. And because then I would have something to look for, like a treasure hunt. And I set my mind on spoons. I thought small, didn't work. But it always works when it's food. And so it makes, as you're looking for that cookie that you heard some baker made, in the next town, you're looking at everything else as well, and you're meeting people. I think I'm very lucky to be a curious person. I just want to know. And so, yes, it helps me. It is what makes it possible for me to create new recipes and to write new stories. But I think I think we all have that spark.
Well, I love that idea of a treasure hunt when you're traveling. Actually, what I love to do is I'll find a coffee shop or a bakery whenever I'm at a place, or a bookstore, whenever I'm at a place that I've never been to, and use that as a point of interest and see, oh, what do people like to eat here? Especially if I'm able to travel to different countries, it's always fun to see their renditions of like a classic American recipe. I find that to be really exciting. And it's funny because some of the items, an apple pie, let's say, it'll look the same, but it doesn't taste the same. And I find that really interesting and just fun to experience.
Yes, but also that's what you can do in baking. So you said, see an apple pie, it looks the same, but it doesn't taste the same. Maybe it has 5 spice powder in it, or maybe it has cardamom. It's the ability to take a basic recipe and to bring in something from your own culture, something from your own country, something from your own family memory, and to make that new and to start a tradition that's your own.
Well, we're certainly inspired to start our own tradition today. You've been listening to Dorie Greenspan, and after the break, she'll continue to answer your burning questions about how to keep your cool in the kitchen during this holiday season. We know it can be stressful, so give us a call, 888-720-9677, or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Catherine Shen. Dorie Greenspan's most recent cookbook, Dorie's Anytime Cakes, is a love letter to simple but delicious cakes. This hour, we're celebrating the comfort and connection that can come from turning on the oven and gathering around something delicious. So I tend to like to gather around the oven because it's warm. As the weather cools, Dorie, do you find yourself gravitating towards sweet cakes or mostly salty variety?
So I have a sweet tooth, but I think there's a place we know there's a place for salty cakes, and I've included a chapter. I learned about salty cakes when I moved to Paris. I had never seen them before, but they're kind of everywhere, including in the frozen food section. So little loaf cakes that could have ham and cheese or smoked salmon, or meant to be sliced. I like to cut them into little fingers and served with wine or drinks before dinner, or I often serve them alongside soup or a salad. And so while I'm mostly a sweet baker, I have some recipes in the new book that I love, like corn toasties, which is kind of my play on a ready-made product. Um, there's cornbread. We talked about harissa. There's a harissa lemon loaf. There's a loaf that was inspired by my trip to Greece, so it has feta and sumac, and it's another way of thinking about baking, about thinking about cake. What's really funny is I thought, it's my book. I can call it anything I want, a cake. And I had this idea to make miso scones. And I thought, well, scones, not really a cake. But I made them I stretched the meaning by scooping the scone mixture with an ice cream scoop and making like a daisy pattern inside a springform pan. And so there are miso cheddar scones that are like pull-aparts, like monkey bread. A girl's got to have fun in the kitchen.
And I love a savory item, actually. So I really appreciated that you added this salty variety. And we're actually kind of freaking out about this miso scone because we love that mix of sort of salty sweet. And then, after you have something sweet, you need something salty to wash it down. And then after you have the salty, you need to have the sweet thing, right? So we're just
it's all in one place.
Exactly. And so I know we've been gushing a lot about all of the things that we love to eat, but I have to ask, is there any holiday dessert that you don't like?
No, I've even come to like fruitcake and steamed pudding.
Okay, so you were not fans of them before.
I was not, but I've come to appreciate them. Yeah, I think, would I choose a steamed pudding? Probably not.
What was the moment that you were like, I think this is okay?
I had to make one.
I
had to make one. It was an assignment. And I thought, I was going to turn it down. And I thought, don't be like that. Maybe you can make one that you like. And also, well, the steamed pudding was fun because I got to flame it. And I mean, yeah.
You got to play with fire.
I got to play with fire in a controlled situation, not like burning down my parents' kitchen.
That's really great because I in this space here, I find myself enjoying a lot of things that I was put on assignment for. And I tend to be really grateful because if I was not assigned to the thing, I don't think I ever would have discovered whatever it was that I've discovered. So have you it sounds like with the steamed pudding specifically, you've had that experience.
Yeah. So I think the other thing is when you go to a friend's home to have a meal, but sometimes there's something there that you didn't think you liked, and of course you're going to eat it, and sometimes we need a little push,
sure,
to try something new or something that we had a preconceived idea about that was negative.
And so once you've de-stressed yourself about needing to make food with a lot of people, for a lot of people during the holidays, but sometimes you're a different person when you're in the kitchen and everyone's sweating and yelling and all that. When we're working with recipes that we haven't seen for an entire year, how do you keep your cool in the kitchen during these times?
First of all, you have to just take a moment and read through the recipe again. Don't just put it on your to-do list and get to work. Read through it. I'm a firm believer in mise en place. on measuring out all of the ingredients like you see on TV,
Sure.
right? So you have all of your ingredients in front of you. And there's something very comforting about knowing that that's organized and ready for you. For the holidays, if you can swing it, work ahead, especially for cakes and pies for the holiday. I mean, I'm a cake girl these days, but we still need pie for Thanksgiving. But so many recipes can be frozen. Yesterday, I was baking with a 4-year-old, and we made a chocolate bundt cake. We made the devil's cake, which is in the new book, and it has a chocolate glaze. We made the cake, we made the chocolate glaze, and we popped it in the freezer, and they're going to have it for Thanksgiving. So you can do so much ahead, and that's such a good feeling to know that you're ready.
Right. Right. So do a lot of prep. And so perhaps you'll be less stressed during those moments. And
well, find a time when you don't have 9,000 people waiting for the food.
Right.
Yep.
Almost a rehearsal. I mean, we do rehearsals and practices for so many things. Why not for the kitchen, right?
Well, and this rehearsal will actually end up being the performance at the meal. It's nice. You're really training for something.
Exactly. And so, of course, we've gone through so much of your philosophy with your new book, Dorie's Anytime Cakes. Are there other things, or what do you hope for your readers to get out of this new book?
Cake.
I sure hope so.
I want everyone in the kitchen baking cakes, making cakes that can stay in the kitchen so that you can just enjoy them when family and friends come around or when you're working on something. Just somebody told me that when you have the kind of cake that you just keep cutting a piece off of, you're just evening out the cake.
Oh, I love that. I'm one of those people that I love eating it off the cutting board. Like I'm a cutting board person. And sometimes I actually just use the cutting board as a serving utensil because there's just something very, I don't know, whimsical about it to me.
Perfect. We're going to have Catherine's cutting board cakes.
All right.
Coming up next.
We're trademarking that. And so you'll actually be in Connecticut later this month as a part of your book tour, Madison, Connecticut on November 13th and New Canaan, Connecticut on November 16th. What are you looking forward to at these events?
I'm looking forward to being in conversation with two fabulous cookbook authors. I'm so happy that they're doing this with me. So I'm going to be at RJ Julia with Casey Elsass, who wrote What Can I Bring? And I'm going to be in New Canaan at the library with Anna Gass, whose Italian food and desserts I'm crazy about her food. So this is really going to be fun.
Well, we're really excited that you're going to be in Connecticut. And for our listeners, all of this information will be on our webpage. You've been listening to Dorie Greenspan. She's a New York Times bestselling author and a James Beard Award winner. Newest cookbook, Dorie's Anytime Cakes, is available now and will be linked to our site, ctpublic.org/wherewelive. We'll also link her book tour dates that we just mentioned. She'll be in Madison at RJ Julia on November 13th and Elm Street Books at the New Canaan Library on November 16th. Dorie, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on our show today and making all of us feel just a little bit better about being in the kitchen.
This has been so nice. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to your cutting board cakes.
Fingers crossed for that.
Start today.
Absolutely. No time like today. So I'm Catherine Shen. Today's show is produced by Chloe Wynn. Our technical producer is Dylan Reyes. Download Where We Live anytime on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for listening. Happy baking, everyone.